So why did you...
Islam left me. You know, I was never a very good Muslim.
Did you ever need religion in your life? Did you need Islam?
Didn't need Islam at all.
So leaving it's no big deal.
It's, you know, no. I was never a very good Muslim either. I didn't pray, and when I was forced to pray, when I lived at home and I was Muslim and I was forced to pray, it didn't mean anything. You know, I was praying in Arabic, I don't speak Arabic.
So Islam out of your life is not a problem. The problem was what you endured while you were living under the influence of Islam.
Yes.
And do you want to talk about that?
You know, you get a lot of women saying that Islam is not a problem and it's culture and it's all this nonsense. And I think, you know, that the women that say that Islam is not a problem for them, that Islam is wonderful, and I think, you know, that's great, that's absolutely brilliant. But think about your sisters in Islam that do suffer. Women that are stoned for adultery, women that have acid on their face, women that are forced into marriage with a complete stranger and then raped, you know. So Islam might be wonderful in your life and that's great, but it's not really Islam that's wonderful. You're just very fortunate that you've been born into a family that gives you freedom, but Islam, the world over, there's so many women and men and children that are oppressed.
But you can also say, you know, a lot of religions could be oppressive. Like I always talk about the honour killings and the shame culture in Ireland that women endure and suffer, but that's not textually or scripturally mandated.
In the Bible,
yeah.
It's not, no. And even if it was, the vast majority of Christians aren't following it.
So why pick on Islam?
Because Islam picks on me. Islam, you know, I can be killed for leaving Islam. I can be killed for saying I'm no longer a Muslim. I can be killed in so many different countries. I can be beaten up here in the UK. We live in the UK, and there's a family in Bradford that have become Christians, and their life is absolute hell. And this is the UK. So to say that, you know, it happens in other cultures and other religions, of course it does, but Islam is the most evil of them all.
How long have you been free from... Well, I know that you live under fear of death, I know that, but when would you say you consciously left Islam, said goodbye to it, fuck you, no more, see you later?
I didn't even know that I could leave Islam, and I've said this before, that I believe that social media, the internet, could be the death of Islam. I didn't know it was possible to leave Islam. I didn't know about apostasy. We're not taught all of this growing up in the Muslim community, in a Muslim home. And it was the internet and being able to research and find out things and realize, you know, I used to always say, for the longest time I used to say I'm a Muslim, just not a very good one. I drink, I smoke, I date, I have fun, I laugh, you know, I do all the things that are haram.
And what was that escape like? It was a very solitary journey. You went from an affluent part of Glasgow to essentially a shithole as a single mother with a child to look after. So that must have been... You clearly got a strong character.
Everything, you know, looking back, because it was such a long time ago, but looking back, and I think that all those nights of feeling lonely, it's the loneliness that really, really gets to you, because you come from a huge extended family, you'll never really get to spend any time on your own, to then be alone. It is the best thing that ever happened to me, you know, looking back, and I think everything was so worth it, to be free, to be able to, you know, silly things, to be able to feel the wind in my hair, to be able to feel the sun in my legs or my skin, to be able to laugh and joke, to be able to control my life. to be able to make the decisions, my own decisions, whether they're right, whether they're wrong, they're my decisions.
So then, essentially, you're lucky because you had the strength of character to come away from an abusive situation. Some people don't have that.
Some people don't, yeah.
They're trapped. And you're now trying to reach out and help people, extend your arms and say, hey, I'm here for you.
And for the longest time, I wouldn't say I was ex-Muslim either, because I just felt like it was another label to go on to the Gory's daughter, you know, mixed race and all these labels. And the reason why I'm proud to say I'm ex-Muslim, I'm apostate, is to give those that are still suffering, that are still struggling, hope that you can come out the other side.
And do you feel that I know that politically you're not far right, I know that for a fact, you're my dear friend, but do you think the right are using you as their token Muslim? Because you know they've always got a token black, a token Muhammad, a token this, and that's what people view you as. Do you feel that?
No, not at all. If anything, you know, if we're going to talk about using people, then I can say that I'm using the far right, because the left and the far left don't give me a platform. They don't want to hear my story. They're the ones that are calling me a Nazi, Hitler, racist, bigot, fascist, all more labels.
I know that politics isn't, Islam isn't part of the political system, but I know that you're not a political animal. You're there to reach out, to encourage ex-Muslims to come forward. That's essentially what you are. You're not there as a far right or far left, or, you know. And
just to shine a light on the harmful practices that go on in the Muslim community, that those that have a bigger voice than me, high-profile Muslims that have a much bigger voice than me, that are silent. They're silent about all these issues, and they want us to believe that Islam is wonderful and Islam is peace. And
why does Tell Mama hate you? Fatty, noted liar, Fiaz McGill. Yep, that's right, I called you it. Why does he hate you? Why do they always shut you down on Twitter? Why do they deplatform you?
They hate me.
Why don't they reach out to you and say, this is fantastic, here's help?
Because they don't want the outside community, they don't want the wider community to know what goes on in their community. They want us to think that Muslims are wonderful and Islam is peaceful. Do you know what? Muslims are wonderful. There's wonderful Muslims the world over. There's wonderful Muslims in my own family. There's wonderful Muslims everywhere. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Islam is still evil.
I know that you're speaking at the Veterans event, and you're going to be sharing your story of your forced marriage and what went on within that marriage. Do you want to give us a little teaser taster?
You know, the whole forced marriage thing as well, and people will say, oh, she says bad things about Islam because her family were bad and they forced her into a marriage. I'm not the only girl in the world that's been forced into a marriage. The world over, again, you know, they say it's culture, so I know girls in Egypt that have been forced into marriages, girls in Saudi Arabia, girls in India, girls in Pakistan, girls in Indonesia. What connects all of us? Islam. It's not our cultures are vast and varied. It's Islam that connects us all.
And you...
It's like trying to explain. So, you meet somebody on your wedding night. That's the first time you meet that person on your wedding night. It's, you know,
was there a looker?
No disrespect to him, and I'm not going to be nasty about his looks or anything like that. But he would, you know, I would have walked right past him in the street. It's not something I would even have looked at. He would never have. We had absolutely nothing in common. We were poles apart. He was much older. He just wanted a visa. He wasn't interested in me. You know, my mum always used to say to me that you learn to love, you grow to love, and you'll fall in love eventually, which is the biggest pile of bullshit ever. I mean, there's absolutely nothing in common. I was really young, really childish, really immature, still am. And he was just so much older and into politics, and I wanted to watch Top of the Pops, and to have to share a bed. And yes.
That's my next question. There was no physical attraction, there was no emotional connection, there was nothing. How does it feel to be touched by someone that you do not want to touch you?
Disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I went for the longest time as well. I would wash. I made myself look as ugly as possible. I wouldn't wash, I wouldn't comb my hair, I wouldn't wash my face, thinking if I just looked really ugly and smelled really bad.
Do you want to talk about the hospitalisation, or do you want to wait till the veterans? Wait till the veterans?
Yes.
Okay guys, there's lots to come up on the Veterans Day. Keep the space watching. And what else about Islam then?
Because it's just got to be 1.5 minute little snippets we give to him. 2 minutes.
That's might be good, I don't know, who knows. So you shared a bed with a man that you did not like, went and tried to, that disgusted feeling.
Being forced into marriage, you know, and having to share a bed with somebody that you have no feelings for, and to be raped. It's the only time in my life where I felt really, really suicidal. I didn't know how I was going to commit suicide, but the thoughts were always there that I would be better off dead. Death would be easier than have to wake up next to him and have to go to bed every night with him. And yeah, pretty horrific. And that's one of the main reasons that I speak out, because I'm not that person anymore. You know, it still affects you. You can never ever get away from that. I still struggle with intimacy, I struggle with relationships. There's loads of issues that I have around having to go through that. And I know that while I'm free and I can take control and make choices for my own life, there's so many girls at 15, 16 being taken out of school and being forced to marry first cousins, strangers.
And was there a place for you to go? Was there a women's shelter specifically set up for ex-Muslims? Was there anything help for you? Nothing?
I wasn't ex-Muslim back then when I left my forced marriage. I was still very much, my mindset was still very much brainwashed, and I would still say I was Muslim.
Well, how did your family react when you left that marriage though?
I was disowned because I wouldn't come back home to get married again.
And so where did you go? Were you on the street? Were you living with friends?
I went to a homeless unit, and then through the homeless unit they put me in touch with a BME charity, which I don't agree with BME charities. I think we're British, you know, so we should just all... And BME charities then keep you isolated, so you're still in that community that looks down its nose at you because you've lived... I'm not sure what it's like now. I'm pretty sure it's not changed that much, but back in the early 90s, you know, you've got shame onto the community, you've walked out of a marriage, you know, it's raining in London, I'm so disappointed.
And you're disowned, and how does that feel?
Devastating, you know, even though I wasn't close to my dad, he's my dad. You know, so even though we didn't have a loving father-daughter relationship, and he was still my dad, and for him to tell me that I was dead and we no longer had a daughter called Shazia was, you know, really, really hurtful. And I struggled for many, many years, thinking that if I just did this, he might accept me again. If I just did that, he might forgive me. And I've used drugs, I've used alcohol, I've used men, I've used everything. I just had no self-worth. And people don't understand. Like, people would say to me, oh, just phone your dad. It's your dad. Just phone him. Don't be silly. You know, go back home. And they don't understand that whole culture thing. And when you're disowned by your family, you're kind of disowned by the entire community, because my dad disowned me. So it would have been a slap in his face if I then went to a neighbour's house for a little bit of acceptance or a little bit of familiarity. Instead, I had to create a whole new life in the trashy community, because my dad had raised me to believe that white people were trash and would never accept me. And my reality was, and my experience was, that white people see beyond my Pakistani dad. White people accept me as one of their own. I'm really loved and really supported in the white community. It's the Pakistani community that only ever see me as the golden daughter.